Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Beauty Outlaw. Today, I'm going to be sitting down with an aesthetic entrepreneur. She's a nurse practitioner and has her doctorate in nursing practice. I'm super excited to have her here. I'm going to sit her down. We're going to talk all things trending. Today, I'm going to ask her about the 3 Bs, Barbie Botox, big butts, and big lips. What does she think about that trend? We're going to get into social media. Has it caused an issue in aesthetics, or is it a good thing? We're going to get into complications, adverse reactions, the use of ultrasound, and I'm going to sit down and find out how she became a millionaire. So thanks for joining us today. Welcome again to the Beauty Outlaw podcast. So I'm super excited to have Dr. Janell Ocampo here. I can call you that, right? You've earned it.
You just call me Janell.
Just call you Janell. So but I'm going to honor that because that's a lot of hard work.
Thank
and
you.
It's awesome.
Thanks.
Janell gave us today, after a long training, she went and trained some nurses in a PA today. And after that, she gave us an hour to be on the podcast. So we appreciate it. But before we get started, I want to know more about you. How did you get started in this industry as an RN?
Well, first of all, it's a privilege to be here. So thank you so much for asking me. I'm excited and thankful to be a part of this podcast. I started in aesthetics in early 2005. I was a registered nurse working in labor and delivery and reading a magazine on night shift and just exhausted and reading about Botox. And I thought, I need that. And part of why I wanted it is there were a couple people that commented to me saying, "Oh, how old are you?" And when I told them how old I was, they said, I thought you're older, not because you look older, but because you're so mature. And I really felt lied to. Yeah.
Oh,
and
man.
I know. So I decided to go get Botox for the first time. And I fell in love with the way it made me feel. So much that when I went back for my follow-up, this doctor said, "Why don't you open a business with me and become my partner?" And
but scary, right? That to take you away from what we know, labor and delivery,
right?
nursing?
I was like, you know what? I don't see any red flags. I am going to go with this and ignore all the red flags that I could ignore because this is a doctor offering to partner with me in what sounds like a dream business. So I did. I borrowed against my home and I opened this business with him. He disappeared on me and I ran this business and it became very successful very quickly. And then I found out he was stealing from the business. Yeah.
Oh.
And we ended up putting up cameras, talking to him about it. And then here he's on camera taking product after hours and so forth. He actually didn't work in the office because he was in another office and I was running this one by itself. And I ended up having to leave the office. He said he'd pay me back and he didn't. It was a successful practice. I wanted to take over the practice and he didn't want me to. So we ended up in a lawsuit. And at the end, he offered me the business in exchange for a judgment. And at that point, a very well-known attorney said, "Look, don't take the practice. It's already tainted. You can go up the street and open anywhere, but you don't want to inherit the problems that he's had since the time that your lawsuit began until now." And I decided to listen to him. And I took the judgment. I never collected. He ended up leaving the country. And I thought, I will never open an aesthetic business again. And I went back to the hospital, but patients were calling me saying, "Janell, please, I need to come to you. Do not do this. Find another office." So I found another office and I started practicing out of another office part-time and working in the hospital part-time. And I was a hustler still. And so I worked for practices that would pay more than anyone else. And a lot of times these practices would pay more than anyone else because they weren't doing things the right way and they couldn't keep their staff, right? And so I found myself in certain situations that made me uncomfortable. And to this day, one of the doctors are still in prison for prescribing controlled substances after hours, right? And
Wow.
And
Wow.
yes. For that reason, I knew I needed to open my own practice again and do right by patients the way I wanted to treat them with the products that I wanted to use and keep them safe and happy and just make it small and fulfilling for me. And so that's what I did. In 2011, I finally opened my own practice and I fell in love with what I did. But I ended up developing some autoimmune health changes. And one of them was MS. I was diagnosed with MS in 2012. And I thought,
Janell.
one day.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
That's very heavy. Wow.
One day, I may end up in a wheelchair, not being able to use my hands. And so I thought I need to build up this business so it can survive without me. And it was my mission to grow a business with other providers that could be just as good, if not better than me. And that's how my business grew into what it was.
And that business was Belle.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Am I saying that right? And it
Yes.
started in Costa Mesa, the original?
No, the original one is in Cerritos.
Okay.
Yeah, it started in
Shout out to
Bellflower.
Cerritos.
Yes, that's right.
I have family in Cerritos. Love Cerritos.
What's interesting about that is I expected it to be a small neighborhood business. And a lot of people were telling me, Janell, you're so good. Why aren't you in Newport or in Beverly Hills? And I said, I want to cater to the girl next door. My passion is natural correction. I want to empower those people that aren't quite seen so they can feel seen. And that means I need to stay put where I'm at. And I want to cater to the people that are here. And it's okay if I stay small. Well, Bellevue blew up. And to this day, it is a huge, successful location. And a lot of people didn't expect that because most practices were opening in big cities because it gave them this automatic prestige just because of the location it was in, right?
The zip code.
Yeah, the zip code. Yes, I
Yep.
agree. So our second location was Costa Mesa. And that opened very end of 2019, right before COVID.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was a fun time to open a business.
It was wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
How did you split that, your time? Because here you have the baby in Cerritos, your baby, your patients that probably loved you and been with you for years. Then you open up another practice. Because you can't duplicate you. You can try, but you're you. How did you do that?
I had an adult daughter that was a nurse and became a nurse practitioner as well.
Wow.
And we partnered in the second location.
Oh.
Yes, and ran it together. And I split my time between the two locations. But I didn't spend a lot of time in either location because my entire career, by the way, my MS has been minimal to none in terms of symptoms. I've been completely healthy and have never had any health issue that's kept me from working, not even once. But I didn't know that. So it was the lack of knowledge of what was going to happen in my future that drove me to teach other people how to
do what maybe your hands couldn't do one day.
Potentially. Yeah, which that never changed, but I didn't know
God.
that. Right. And so I was very part-time in both locations is what I did. And I'd come in and support the team. I'd see some patients that were willing to wait to see me. So I was booked months and months out because I wouldn't open up my books completely and had this many years of patience. And you remember at that time, right before COVID, our industry was just booming. Oh. And same with COVID too. It's just booming. And we had so much growth and so many patients. And COVID sucked, but the time was really cool for our industry.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I tell people this all the time. I couldn't get gloves, but my Botox arrived in 24 hours whenever I needed it.
Saline was a little hard to come
Saline
by.
was a little hard
that
to
got
come.
a little expensive.
Yes, that did. That's
did.
right. Now my memories of
The
going back.
lidocaine?
The lidocaine.
And
Couldn't get
sometimes
that.
the saline wasn't bacteriostatic, so it pinched
That's-
patients more.
But they didn't care. They wanted it. They wanted their Botox. And so many new people got into aesthetics during that time, meaning got into, like, they've never tried Botox before and they tried it.
They can hide behind the mask, right?
The mask covered their lips when they got their lips done. It was great. It really was a booming time.
It was.
And do you feel you're seeing any changes right now since we're 4 years out from COVID? Are you seeing a settling, a shift in the industry with the boom of filler? Have you seen anything change?
I've seen a lot of changes, and I'm sure you have as well. But number one is I think there's some spending hesitancy because of the changes in our economy and the uncertainty of what's going on. And there have been layoffs as well, right?
Yes.
And for that reason, I think people aren't spending as freely and they're being a little bit more mindful of their expenses. And not that we've had this huge decline, but I notice overall in speaking to many businesses, because I'm in many offices all the time doing trainings or talking and providing support. And I hear it a lot. But I also remember in 2008,
Was it 8?
right?
That was a scary time.
It was. And I thought, well, maybe I would have to go back to the hospital again. But in all honesty, what happened is, it wasn't as busy, but the quality of our patients became so much better. And we got to spend more time with the patients and listen to them and hear their reason. And it brought so much more meaning to me as an aesthetic injector to hear their stories. Like, I lost a job and I'm going to go out and compete with people 20 years younger than me. And I want to look better. But not only did it help them look better, it helped them feel better so they can go into that interview with confidence and really tackle that interview and feel good about what they need to say about themselves so they can sell themselves and really get that job. Or whatever else it was that they needed to do at that time.
Makes them feel confident.
Yeah.
And that's the real beauty of what I love about this industry is the friendships that you build with your patients and the changes you can make in those little things to them, their lifestyle, whether some people go through divorces, they feel a little bit bad about themselves. They do a little pick-me-up, whether it be a microneedling with a little Botox. They do. Their shoulders go up. They feel better. I love that part. Now, there's a whole nother part, though.
Of the change in our industry? There is. There absolutely is. I was hoping we'd come back to that. And I was telling myself, okay, I have to, my short attention span. I'm like, might just jump to something else and just like screw it. But yes, there is another side of the changes that are happening right now. And part of it may be from the law AB 890, where nurse practitioners are supposedly eventually granted
eventually.
Yeah, we could talk more about that too. That could be a whole other podcast.
It was supposed to be 2023, right?
Yes.
2023 NP's family practice.
And now the soonest is 26. But anyways, AB 890, I think, did plant a seed because that happened in around 2020 as well when that law passed. Nurse practitioners can have solo practice. And not that it's happening just with nurse practitioners, but there's a lot of people that feel inspired to go out and open their own practice. And that's wonderful. But a lot of it is this low commitment type of moving forward where they're renting places that are month to month, like a salon suite. And it's hard to be successful with that. But I think that there are changes in the industry. Some patients aren't coming to some of the bigger locations because they're following their injector into these other smaller locations. And good for them. I do find that a lot of them tend to not be as successful, though, because it is a lower commitment type of practice. And some patients aren't going to be as comfortable going into a salon suite where they're not as invested in the business side of it, right? Because from one day to the next, they could potentially close shop. Something doesn't go right.
And I think patients should be aware of this, that this is something they should question. I hate to be like, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but being isolated can be dangerous as a nurse or any type of injector. Being in a bigger, more committed practice I think is a smart move to make, and not separating yourself with I loved how you said it. What was it? It wasn't low commitment, but in a way it is. They're not in the long-term end game.
Right.
And what if something happens and they're not around in 6 months or in next month to follow up? So I don't know what can be done about something like that.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, there aren't regulations, right? And a lot of people going into these lower commitment type buildings are also not very experienced. And some of them are very experienced. But like I said, this low commitment, let me just try this, doesn't catapult their success very well, right? It's a very slow to grow way to go. And some people may feel that's the safest for them and that's all they're willing to commit to. But there are also a lot of people going in after an online course or 1 or 2 in-person courses, and they can't find a job in the industry, so they're just going to open on their own. And I see it in the chats all the time. And that's part of why I don't even comment in a lot of these injector chats, because it could be a full-time job just walking them through all the adverse events and how to manage them or what has worked for me. They really need to go out there and get training, and it's tough, right?
It is.
Yeah, and it's hard to get a job in this industry in the first place, and a lot of the jobs that newer injectors get aren't the best environments. But if they can be in a practice with other injectors, there's a lot more support that they're going to get. Patients are going to be a lot safer, at least, than going to a salon suite with a newer injector.
By themselves, right.
Yes,
Isolated by themselves. So there is something to be said, I guess, about the chain type of aesthetic facilities, or the Walmart of aesthetics facilities, because at least it gives a young nurse or PA or physician a place to start and get education and possibly grow from that point to being a really strong, fundamentally strong injector. So maybe they serve a purpose long term.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of these chain locations don't provide enough support to a nurse in training, but some of them do. So it does depend on the business type and their model. There are some chain locations with amazing providers, but a lot of them, it has the reputation. I go in and I do a training and they want to learn something that they've never done before because someone in the office wants them to inject that same type of patient immediately after the training. And they have to be okay with that. And these are people that have not even just registered nurses, like nurse practitioners, and they don't know what they're being thrown into because they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And
that's the thing.
Yeah, that's tough.
When you're new, the sky is the limit, and you just so excited about being in the field, in this new field, growing field of aesthetics. But the longer you've been in it like us, the more you see, I think the more you get a little frightened of what potentially can happen. For instance, blindness. That is a thing.
Right.
It's real. And when I discuss it with some of my patients, they're shocked. They never knew that could be a complication. And I feel it should be in the hands of a highly skilled injector. Or at least somebody that can get out of it.
Absolutely. And blindness, as rare as it is, there are so many adverse events that aren't as big and detrimental as blindness that we're more likely able to reverse, like simple arterial occlusions or even delayed onset nodules, things like that a newer injector is not going to be able to treat. And so being a part of a team with a mentor is really the best place to be as a newer injector. And it can be hard to find. Yeah. So I understand the frustration in some of these nurses' minds on why they're opening their own place.
Yeah.
But
well,
it's scary.
In a way, we did the same thing, right? Back in the day. I mean, we kind of just...
Yeah, but back then bad things didn't happen.
No, really...
They did,
never.
Didn't they? But just not to us.
Just not to us. Thank goodness. Nobody knew. Nobody knew what could happen.
With that, I did have an occlusion with radius. And you know,
How did you walk out of that one?
I was a few years in, but I saw some blanching and I thought, oh, this is part of the swelling because radius swells.
Mm-hmm.
And
where did you inject? With the do you remember?
Mid-cheek.
Mid-cheek.
Yeah. And he walked away and didn't contact me about pain. I'm sure I didn't give him enough warning to contact me if he had pain. And he thought he was uncomfortable because he had washed his car outside. So he just dealt with it and contacted me a couple days later and I already had an open wound. Right. Oh. And then I realized I made a bad judgment call. But it was my lack of experience, even a few years in, and exposure to
an adverse event.
Yes.
Actually, now you've seen it.
Because now it's everywhere. I mean, the amount of literature and videos that are
Google
out there.
What it looks like.
Yes. But back then it was so rare and far and few between that I only knew it and understood it in theory. So when I did see some blanching, I thought, this isn't happening. You know, like it must just be some swelling. Yeah. And so that was bad judgment call. He ended up with a small scar and and remained my patient for many, many years. So, but what a bummer, right? And
that is a bummer.
I could have potentially prevented the scar, even though it's not a reversible filler. I could have spent longer manipulating the tissue to try to return blood flow. And there are other things I could have done to try to reverse that product. And on that note, I only like reversible fillers now. And I personally prefer,
live and learn, right?
Yeah, not to use radius because that's an old filler and there are a lot of better choices out there, in my opinion. And we were a top 10 account in California back in the days. But I mean, I've moved on from there. I think there are more colors to my palette and just, I don't have room for that one. Not because it's not a decent product, but it's a product that's not reversible, and I like the safety profile of other products.
Yeah, so. I love that, Janell. It is true, as things get safer and certain products get safer, some products don't get as safe. Some products have gotten, different. The G prime's very thick. We're actually calling them implants now, I believe. I think they're moving in that direction. Do you have to term anything an implant? I know it says it on the box, but
well, I mean, I definitely look at dermal fillers as soft tissue implants, and I think we should treat them that way for sure. Yeah, but we didn't really recognize them as implants in the past, did we?
No, but it seems like it's been the movement lately. I've heard this terminology now spoken by some of the highest level educators are starting to use that in their trainings. And I think that's a good thing because I think it shifts your mindset of what you're doing. Yeah. Filler just seems so not a big deal.
Right.
Not a big deal. I
agree.
You could go on TikTok and somebody's ordered it and they're putting it in their own face at home. And then they look great, or however people think they look.
Because they only see the good outcomes, right? Otherwise, we're not going to post that video.
We're not going to post. Have you ever seen or intervened on a really bad adverse event?
Lots. Lots. First of all, we're 10 provider practice, right? But only that.
Lots of volume.
Yeah, so it's lots of volume. But in addition to that, patients who didn't have access to their injector, needed to go somewhere, they would come to us as well, or patients being injected in other countries coming to us with infections or adverse whatever is going on, hard lumps underneath the skin. I mean, we've injected patients that have had fillers in other countries, and all of a sudden they have a really bad response because there are certain fillers out there that aren't FDA approved in the US, they're approved in other countries, and you put an HA filler over that, and there's a good chance they're going to have an inflammatory response. Then you're stuck with the problem of having to reverse them. So that's not easy either, right? But we have seen that on multiple occasions, patients coming from other countries.
That's what I want to talk about is ultrasound. Because that's what I see, and I know I know you see it like this because I want to hear your history on this because I already know it, so I want you to share it. To be able to see a patient that doesn't remember where they were injected, doesn't remember what product was used, and to be able to see under the skin, possibly, or see something. I think we can see filler from ultrasound, right? We can actually see a certain color. Is it? I don't know enough about ultrasound. I have not taken a course, but I do know that you can see the more of a darker color. Is that more of a water-filled substance?
Yeah. So hyaluronic acid appears on ultrasound like water or a little compartmentalized segments of a liquid, so it'll be black on ultrasound.
Okay.
There are other fillers out there too that will present differently. So radius will look a little bit more echogenic. You think about it's the calcium, right? And so sound bounces off of bone or calcium, and this is. The product's a little different, so you can see through some of it, but it tends to look a little bit more like a snowstorm effect with some ability to see through radius because it's not super thick like bone, right? But and then there are products like silicone products, and there are other products as well that I don't get to see as often, but on occasion I do, and there could be some mixed echogenicity on how that person's body responded to some of these other permanent products. And even from places that are very reputable in other countries, they use other products that we don't use here. And I'm glad we don't use some of those products here. I just think that fillers that are permanent equal potential for permanent problems. And maybe it's just because I see the ones with the problems and the good ones don't come in, but I've seen enough of them to tell me that I wouldn't ever be comfortable putting one of those long-term fillers in. Biostimulators, I feel differently about, but when it comes to dermal fillers, I want them reversible. Yeah. But ultrasound's wonderful because some patients would come to us from other countries and not know what was injected, and we would try to reverse them and see no difference. But now we can look under ultrasound and see if it looks like an HA filler before we even try to inject them, which is helpful.
Well, you can look under ultrasound because, my dear, you've had lots of training with ultrasound. So tell us your story with ultrasound. And are you going to train ultrasound? Do you do that now? Or
I'm doing a little bit of it right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a passion. Yeah, I would be a privilege to teach you. It's a passion of mine. I was an ultrasound tech before I was a registered nurse, and I absolutely loved my career. I worked in a basement in the dark, and I scanned patients, and it was a lot of fun, but I was worried that might get old eventually. And I was young, and I had this whole career in front of me. And so I just wasn't sure where I should end up. And that's why I kept studying. And actually, that's why I kept studying all the way to my doctorate, right? Is because I thought, well, what else could I be doing? What else should I be doing? So I just kept going to school until, I guess I can choose a different major. But I'm like, oh, this is the end, right? Like, well, I don't know. It doesn't have to be the end. I'm still addicted to education. I love learning and really consider myself a lifelong learner, cliche. But I also love teaching, which is why I'm spending a lot of time doing that right now, that I have a little bit more time on my hands. So yes. And I'm very passionate about ultrasound. I think it can make all of our lives easier. It's such a wonderful modality. And it does have a big learning curve. If you think about if someone came and taught you 20 phrases in another language that you've never spoken before, you may be able to sit down and spend a few hours to memorize those. But as soon as that training's over, if you don't practice them, you'll probably forget all of them, right? Well, it's the same thing with ultrasound. It's so different that it's almost like learning another language. And if you don't keep practicing it, it's just,
you're going to forget it.
Yeah, it's just going to be this device that sits in your corner. It really needs to be a part of your practice. You can use it when you inject certain areas. If you want to check for vascularity first, if there's a patient that maybe you want to see if there's some filler left or reverse some filler. Now you can be more precise on how much product you're injecting and where you're injecting it versus just blind injecting the Hylenex. So there are different reasons to use ultrasound. And I think that it is a benefit for every provider. And yes, I understand that we all got away with not doing ultrasound for years, but it's this beautiful tool that will help improve safety, get us better at outcomes, improve accuracy, and really understand what's happening as well. Like, I didn't know before ultrasound, when I was injecting on bone, that a lot of product wasn't staying on bone. It wasn't. And there's a lot of backtracking that happens, right? And there are different things that we learn as we can see underneath the skin, right? Or we're down on bone behind the masseter. Well, it's getting in the masseter, just so you know, it is.
It is.
And fine, but just know it's there, okay? It's not all on bone. And we don't always know that stuff. We think we're doing something and something different is happening, whether good or bad. It's just knowledge is power. And once we understand that, it can help us grow as an industry. This is a young industry.
It's a baby.
We're young.
We're young. You heard that.
We're young.
Do you think this is going to be something moving forward that is going to have to be part of your protocol, mandatory to do in the future, or have to be able to be insured?
Ultrasound? I don't know. Our industry lacks regulation as it is. I mean, somebody can take an online course and never have touched a patient. Insurance will cover them. They can open their own business and inject patients legally, right? Even as a registered nurse, a nurse practitioner, a PA, a physician. This is allowed in aesthetic medicine. So that feels really far from requiring ultrasound. It sounds good in theory. I'm like, yes, I think this. And I'm an optimist and I'm feeling a little pessimistic right now, but it just feels pretty far-fetched. That would be amazing if...
It's just such a great safety profile added to everything else. I mean, there's a reason why we keep Hylenex in our office, right?
Yes.
It seems to me there'd be a reason why we want to and keep ultrasound as part of the practice and take it on and learn it.
As a patient, if somebody scanned you right before...
That's no-brainer.
It would feel good, right?
It would feel amazing.
They care that much about me that they just looked underneath the skin. It could be at 2 minutes. They looked underneath my skin before they injected in that area. Like, that's how much they cared about me. And wow, the skill. And can I get that anywhere? Not anywhere. You can get that somewhere, but not anywhere.
Well, I even think it's great for people that are learning lower face Botox. I mean, the DAO. I mean, we know that sometimes it doesn't always get in that. That's pretty superficial where that lies. So sometimes we lose some of our Botox too in that area, or people cause the asymmetrical smile. This could possibly, I'm thinking, what a cool little assessment tool you could do real quick, with your patient, just to assess their anatomy, even though you should be doing that anyways, but
and hopefully
through expression.
With that knowledge is power, and we're less likely to also underdose the patient.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Underdose or overdose.
Yes.
Just right?
Yes. But underdose more.
Underdose. It's true. It's true. Underdose. We need to dose right.
Yes.
We could get into the whole world of Botox. My favorite, Botox, Dysport, my two favorite modalities. I love them both.
Me
Talk
too.
about changing the world. They changed your world. They changed my world. And they're continually changing other parts of people's bodies, Crohn's disease, so many different headaches, the real headaches.
Yeah.
The real migraines.
The real headache.
Not
Right.
The real headache, not the, well, do you think I get like tension headaches? Do you think I can get this covered from my insurance?
Or trauma versus trauma, right?
Yes, trauma versus trauma.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, I really started in this career for the discount, you know.
Of course.
But I fell in love with the positive impact it made on others, and that's what kept me. And that's the real truth. I think you expressed earlier the same thing, right? Like that positive impact that it makes on other people. I mean, they can just go out there and live life a little more fully. And these are little tweaks. Are they huge changes in their face? No, we improve on a piece of their beauty, and all of a sudden they go out and walk with so much more confidence, and they look more beautiful because they feel more beautiful. It's a feeling.
And aesthetics, there's a world in aesthetics for every individual. It's not just for that certain person that looks like they walk into a med spa or a doctor's office. It is for every single human being, whether it's acne, whether it's scars. I deal with a lot of acne and scarring. That's what I do. And Botox has been, and Dysport have been a great modality for those patients, as well as microneedling and PRF. Those things are game changers. To watch those patients go from not being able to really look me in the eye when they're speaking to me in that first consult, to have them look at me, smile, hug me, and have so much confidence. It's amazing. And that's why you're in the industry, and that's why I'm in the industry. That's the beautiful side of industry.
It is.
Now there's, wrapping it up, now there's the 3 B's. Barbie, Botox, booty, big booty, and big lips. You talked to me about that a little bit earlier, and this is a big trend.
Right.
And is that what you think it is? Is it just a trend and it's going to move on?
I do, actually. So I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that disagree, but big lips and big booties, I think they've come and gone. And yes, fuller lips, less deflated lips, that's beautiful. But in my opinion, as soon as you can tell someone's had work done, it's bad work, right?
Yeah,
and so those gigantic booties out there,
those big booties.
I mean, it sucks that they have to go through these major surgeries to get them fixed now because that trend has gone. And same with lips. I mean, these are extremes that became a norm in our industry.
Became a norm.
And it's not that they're completely gone, but we're definitely far from that now. And I think we're coming out of it. And I'm sure it's going to be something else, and we'll see. I mean, remember the big cheeks too.
Big cheeks.
Yeah.
Big cheeks. The 90s, the big breasts, the big boobs.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, the bigger the better.
Yes.
And they were never big enough. After surgery, person would always come back, well, I should have gone a little bit bigger, like you said. It was just, and then everybody in the 2000s came back in and wanted, that trend was gone. It was more that Jennifer Aniston, the small.
We just want little cute titties.
Little cute boobies.
Yes.
Right?
Titties. No. Boobies are like big, right?
Yes,
and the titties are just like these cute little bouncy things.
They're just cute.
Yeah.
So if we could change the world, we would get rid of big booties. So that poor people.
And big lips.
Big lips, because then they got to get all that fixed later. Just don't even worry about it. You're beautiful. You're beautiful the way you come out. And the beauty of aesthetics is to enhance that beauty.
Right.
And that's what I love about you, Janell, is that you want to enhance on the inner beauty of someone and give them a little edge. And that's the beauty of aesthetics. And it is wild out there, and we can spend a lot of time debating what should happen in the future. I don't have any of the answers. I have my own opinions. We discussed earlier, you and I, off camera, a little bit about the new nurses, and then we'll wrap it up. But a little bit about the new people just going to nursing school to get into aesthetics. And I asked you, do you think there's a place for that? And you had a really good answer. Can you go ahead and share that with us?
In nursing school, it is so strongly frowned upon that nurses go straight into aesthetics. And I personally think it's a bummer. And I know that this is not a popular opinion, but if someone has a strong enough opinion of what they want to do in their future, and if that doesn't include the hospital, I think that they can get enough of a foundation in aesthetics to not need to go work as a med-surg nurse or an ICU nurse or an ER nurse. I'm not saying that those aren't wonderful foundation for assessment skills or understanding comorbidities. But the bottom line is that the majority of what aesthetic nurses learn are in trainings outside of the hospital. And
Agreed.
What needs to be done, whether they've worked in the hospital or not, is months of trainings. And so if inexperienced nurses can start on something very simple, like a simple laser treatment, and slowly get trainings multiple over and over and over again before they're working independently with patients, they can safely provide those treatments and they can learn assessment skills over time. So I don't think that nurses need a hospital foundation. I'm not saying that that's not helpful. And if I had two of the same resume, and one of them had hospital experience and one didn't, I would like the one with hospital experience if they both had everything else. And so I'm not saying that that's not helpful, but I'm not saying it's absolutely necessary. And these nurses that want to enter in aesthetics and become nurses for that reason, there's no reason to shame them, whether it's the nursing school or other nurses in the industry. I think it's okay. Yeah.
And, you know, I agree with you. I think if the passion's there, that was my route, 35 years ago. I've been in this industry a long time. Talk about the Wild West. It was the Wild West a long time ago. Yes. We were allowed to do things, I don't know. It didn't matter.
Anything.
The doctor called you on the phone. Go ahead and do that. You're okay, doctor. Oral order. Done, right?
Yeah.
Things have changed. So we do have a better grip and handle on protocols now. More safety is there, more awareness. And if you do something wrong, the cameras are everywhere, right?
Yes.
So we're always going to get called out on us doing something, whether it be malpractice or doing something illegally. So I welcome the new nurses, and I think they need a place for mentorship.
Yes, absolutely.
So if we could tell the new nurses out there that there's plenty of us old seeds out there that are willing to give you,
want to support you
as much as we can to bring you into the industry and welcome you, doing in a safe way. We want you to learn safe protocols and learn to be a good injector, safe injector, and put your patient first, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up, Janell, and I would love to have you back because I'd love to get into ultrasound with you because I really think that you have a powerful knowledge of that and to share your years of aesthetic experience and that you have that foundation, you could really be a good voice for ultrasound for nurses. So I want to welcome you back for that.
Thank you. It would be a privilege.
And you're an awesome individual. Thank you for being on here. And you're now a beauty outlaw.
Thank you.
So here you go, Janell. We always have to do this. At the end of every show, we have to toast to, I'm going to toast to Janell. Thank you, Janell. And thank you for sharing your life and experience and your journey.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Cheers. So don't forget to like and subscribe. We always have to get to business when we do this because we know that it's all about subscribers. So please take the time to subscribe to the channel so we can keep interviewing awesome people like Janell. The fact that she came on this show today, I'm honored. So I'm just a little seed, a little fish right now in the pond of the big world of social media. So I need your help. So help me out. Help people like Janell out. We're trying to get the word out to you newbies out there that want to get into the industry. So like and subscribe and cheers. Cheers.